atheists, you druids, you new converts, you sage disciples, and even those of you who think life might somewhere have meaning, welcome. My non-university students, welcome to the Uncensored Unprofessor, a show where we pause to think. Jesus was aware of sarcastic social pressure. In Luke 7:32 it reads, Jesus saying, "They are like children sitting in the marketplace, calling out to each other. We played the pipe for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not cry." Over the last year of societal meltdown, of listening to the structural timbers not only creak and groan, but of watching them get intentionally lit on fire with napalm, I've had former students and extended family reach out to me saying, "Ed, why have you changed? Why won't you join the snappy chorus of wokeness? You were always so open and woke as a professor, Ed. Sing our songs, Ed. Dance our dance, Ed. Oh gosh, Ed, why? Why did you change?" You guys, here's the deal. I haven't changed. That you took one GE class with me doesn't mean you got my epistemological wiring. That I was ecumenical when I was your one-class professor, that I expressed beauty for diverse cultures, that I spoke about my respect for the other world major religions, that I am pro-women, that I'm a staunch supporter of human rights, things that I'm assuming were winsome and inviting to you then, I still am today. I loathed godless Marxist philosophy then, I loathe it today. I cringed at emotional pseudo-foundations then, same today. I hated racism then, I hate it today. I was ardently committed to a Christian worldview then, same today. Back then I was radically committed to the eternal triune God, yeah, same today. And yes, it's true, I walked things down the middle of the road in my classroom and my lectures, but that wasn't because I was compromising. It was actually a strategic missional commitment. I wanted to dialogue with, think critically with, anyone and everyone who would. But my wiring? The same then as it is today. The difference? I now have a show where A, I don't have to play it down the middle, and B, I have a show where I get to be me, get to plainly speak my mind, get to directly think with those who share Christian values, my long-studied, my long-thought-through, my extensively analyzed, self-scrutinized worldview. So me? Haven't changed. Well, I have way more gray hairs in my beard now, but otherwise, I am what I was. Long before the hippies, Soren Kierkegaard was first. He emphasized a heartward orientation to life. Long before the woke crowd, 18th century evangelicalism was first. They wanted folks to make Jesus the Lord of their hearts. Long before the Facebook like or beating heart emoji buttons, Jesus was emphasizing the role of the human heart. And crud, apologies to Jesus, but it was Aristotle who, 320 years before Christ, said that human beings are essentially lovers. We're not first thinkers, said Aristotle the thinker. Instead, we are first, foundationally, lovers. We do what we love. We spend time in what we love. We focus on what we love. We are driven across life's many venues by what we love, by what we want, yearn for. So yes, at a foundational level, we are emotional beings, love-driven beings. We choose what we love. And With that human nature frame as a foundation for understanding, I want to work through a few timely 21st century scenarios. Salem is an 11-year-old girl living in, of all places, Salem, Oregon. And she catches noisy grief from her 5th grade classmates about that little coincidence, too. On Friday nights, Salem's been going and spending night at her best friend Ava's house. Now, Salem's mom, Amora, is single, and she divorced Rick, Salem's dad, 7 years ago when she discovered Rick was having an affair. Salem, heavily influenced by the mood of her friend Ava's live and let live family, has decided that she wants to get a nose ring. Her mom, Amora, is uncomfortable with Salem getting a nose piercing, if only 'cause, well, Salem is only 11 years old. But what difference does it make? Salem's body, Salem's nose is her own, yeah? Sienna grew up in a Midwestern Baptist house. While she was in high school, her parents were, well, especially her mom was, strict about Sienna's dating opportunities. But now that she is at Arizona State, she's begun hooking up with men from different college classes. And those one-night hookups involve zero level of existential contact, no resulting commitment, that's just fine by Sienna. She doesn't have time or energy for a relationship. And what's wrong with that? Sienna's body is, well, Sienna's body. DeAndre and Shanice have been married for 7 years. Despite the fact that they both came from large families, they've not been able to get preggers. The last few months they've been excited at the prospects of paying a surrogate mother to carry a baby for them, his sperm and her egg. Even more, Shanice's urban gynecologist says that he can manipulate the conception so that the baby is the boy they always dreamed of. So, what's wrong with that? It's their marriage, their conception, their baby, Shanice's own body. Catherine? Well, she got pregnant during a Southern College drinking buddies party after she had 3 too many. 5 weeks afterward, she began having unprecedented cramping, but missed her period. And after spending $11 on a clear blue pregnancy test kit, the gray digital window read out, pregnant. Oh, crud, she thought to herself. I'll just go get an abortion. And what's wrong with that? Catherine's body is her body. 9-year-old Nabu is an immigrant from Zambia living in Elmhurst, adjacent Queens, New York City. For as long as he can remember, Nabu has been uncomfortable being a boy. With 4 older sisters and no dad living at home, he's always been happier doing girl things. And besides, the boys in his class are positively mean to him every day. At school last week, he learned that he can take a pill and then have his penis cut off, have that reshaped into a vagina. Then he'll be a girl. It's even possible, Nabu's teacher said, to be freed of one's prior gender. His teacher even told some stories of children, not a lot different from Nabu, who have already had this procedure and who are now living happy new lives. What's wrong with the sex transformation surgery and hormone treatment? After all, Nabu's 9-year-old body belongs to Nabu. Ephraim is an 81-year-old diabetic. 11 years ago, he stepped on a rusty nail out on a trail, his foot got infected, and his left leg below the knee was amputated to stop the gangrenous spread. Tethered to a walker and feeling pinned down inside his 1-bedroom city apartment, today he wants to have a medically assisted suicide. What's wrong with that? I mean, as Ephraim told his AA group, it's his body and he's tired of it. Liam is a 13-year-old boy living in Plymouth, New Hampshire. Raised by his now widower father, Liam's mom died in a tragic bus accident 4 years ago, and ever since her death, Liam's father has been emotionally distant. He goes out drinking and comes home long after Liam has went to bed. And now, Liam doesn't know why, but he has drawn emotionally close to his older cousin Lucas, a 23-year-old who lives at Liam's grandparents' house. Lucas listens to Liam, hugs Liam tight when he's told a sad story about his dad. And Lucas said that if Liam wants, they can get married and happily live their lives together. Society today? What's wrong with that? Liam's body is, after all, Liam's body. Or take Amelia. She's 47. 4 years ago, she retired from 25 years in the Air Force. But across those 4 years of retirement, she's fought a deep and dark depression. Feeling aimless, she's talked with her family's Spanish Catholic priest because the cost was minimal as a vet. She's visited numerous VA counselors. And when all of those weren't helpful, she even paid handsomely for a highly touted psychiatrist who tried to, air quotes, listen Amelia's way through her growing sense of self-hatred. None of that worked. And lately it's become clear to her Amelia hates her left hand. If she could only get rid of her freckly left hand, she would feel better. So after talking with her GP, she is opting to have her left hand surgically removed. And besides, as a member of the transabled community, a growing demographic, then she'll be able to collect disability from the state. And that, along with her military high 36 retirement plan, will mean she'll never have to work again. What's wrong with all that? It's Amelia's body, her left hand. What do all those narrative threads have in common? Well, what do they have in common beside the fact that I made them all up? They're all indicative of our Pomo culture's worldview. And I could go on with examples that mirror life today. Again, in each case we're told, or is it we are shushed? In each case we're told we shouldn't ask questions, we shouldn't raise concerns. After all, the postmodern mantra says, each person's body is each person's body. It's your body, you can do what you want with it. What's wrong with that mantra? What's wrong with that worldview? Everyone's body is theirs to control, theirs to use, to modify, to love. We do what we love. In ancient categories, you guys, this philosophical worldview, and given that the little vignettes I spun earlier are now prevalent, this is now a sweeping worldview. But in ancient categories, this philosophical worldview is known as Gnosticism. Gnosticism is from gnosis. Say gnosis, class. Gnosis, teacher. Gnosis means knowledge. Knowledge is what is important. Not actions, not behaviors. Knowledge, even though it is invisible, is power. Gnosticism, a strange cauldron of Judaism, Christianity, and Platonic philosophy, Gnosticism held that our invisible spirit is what's important in life. We need, the Gnostics taught, to take care of and feed our spirits. But the upshot of that, our bodies do not matter. Or, more carefully, the matter of our matter does not in fact matter. And the Gnostics were emphatic. The body is sinful and will one day be cast off in death anyway. So, again, and by logical extension, the body was a significant problem, a dire hindrance inside Gnostic philosophy. And still more, the Gnostics believe Jesus came to deliver us not only from bodily existence, but from material existence itself. Jesus just wants us to make it to heaven. That was ancient Gnosticism. The spirit is more important than the body. And today's pomognosis builds on but tweaks the ancient model. These things never arise in a vacuum. They always have precursors, even if folks are clueless to what those precursors are. But today's Gnosticism, your self, or more accurately, your will is superior to your body. In fact, your will owns your body. Your body serves at the pleasure of your will. Now, before I get too far down this road, I want to tell you that my framing on this topic, both the cultural analysis and then later its Christian antidote, my framing today is informed by the scholarship of my own dissertation, which, yes, you can buy at Amazon. It's entitled Beyond Salvation. It was published by Paternoster in 2004. And then B, I'm informed by the whole sweep of Eastern Orthodox theology, which greatly emphasizes the incarnation of the Word as the archetype for theoanthropology. Third, I'll be drawing on John Paul II's book, The Theology of the Body. And fourth, D, just recently I read a book by theology professor Nancy Pearcey entitled Love Thy Body, Answering Hard Questions About Life and Sexuality. That was published by Baker Books in 2018. I referenced that bibliographic snippet in case one of you wants to go deeper, wants to probe more carefully what physicality and human existence is all about, or for more info, you can email me at uncensoredunprofessor@gmail.com. Hey, you probably knew this, but the chief export of Chuck Norris is pain. Chuck Norris, he can dribble a bowling ball. In the morning, Chuck Norris drinks a mug of nails instead of coffee. And by the way, yes, I know where to find Chuck Norris jokes, but send me your favorite again at uncensoredunprofessor@gmail.com. Oh, Chuck Norris. One more thing, you guys. I love it when folks help promote my out-of-the-box show. And it's so easy. Just copy and paste a URL link from my Facebook posts to Libsyn or YouTube or iTunes or Facebook, and put that paste in your social media post. Wham, bam, donezo. Friends who've recently done just that? Angela, Victor S., Daniel F., and Bruce Willis. Thanks, you guys. Back to my reflections on the body and worldview. Pastorally, let's just say then that in each of the scenarios above, we Christ followers need to find ways to extend grace and compassion. It simply won't do to simply label an action as sinful, whatever instantiation we may be talking about. We do need to see people as persons created in the image of God, persons for whom Christ died, persons through whom the Holy Ruach breathes life, persons God wants to include in His own mission. So, grace, of course. But true compassion, true love, true mercy also involves truth. Oh, goodness. Honestly, I think most of the church is compassionate, is indeed looking for ways to reach out to be a hospital for sinners. There's a running canard that the church only looks to judge and condemn, and I don't know, maybe that was true in my boyhood church days, but I'm less convinced today. But let's get back to the worldview of Gnosticism. Back in 2015, the Supreme Court made their famous, some say infamous, Obergefell ruling. Class, say Obergefell.
Obergefell, teacher.
Jim Obergefell, he's 54 years old today. He had undergone a same-sex union ceremony, was unable, per Ohio state law, to legally list himself as the husband of his intimate love, John Arthur, on John's death certificate. So after Obergefell lost in the federal Sixth Circuit Court, he appealed to SCOTUS. The date? June 26, 2015. 6/26/15. It should be emblazoned in the memory of every God-fearing believer here in the United States. Why? That was the date that SCOTUS sanctioned the philosophy that had been brewing on college campus cook stoves for decades. SCOTUS crystallized and enshrined that theretofore nascent philosophy so that now it is the law of the land. And the crux of the Obergefell case? Do same-sex folks have the right to legal marriage and be recognized nationally as legally married? And that means prior to 2015, marriage under federal law was reserved for a man and a woman. Now, obviously, if one reads the U.S. Constitution, there is nothing therein, up or down, about marriage. And that's not because the founders were indifferent to marriage, it's because it was a given, for at least a few thousand years, that marriage was between a man and a woman. So, how did SCOTUS rule in Obergefell? Using what kind of argumentation did they rule? Well, let me give you some Justice Anthony Kennedy, who wrote for the majority, because Obergefell passed 5-4, and in favor were Kennedy, Ginsburg, Breyer, Kagan, and Sotomayor, and opposed were Roberts, Scalia, Thomas, and Alito. Anyway, writing for the majority, Justice Kennedy argued, quote, "No union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideals of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. In forming a marital union, two people become something greater than they once were." End quote. Notice that Kennedy did not say a man and a woman become something greater than they were. No. For the majority opinion, he rooted the new legal right in something other than biological sex. Justice Kennedy continued, quote, "that the right to marry is a fundamental right inherent in the liberty of the person and is therefore protected by the Due Process Clause, which prohibits the states from depriving any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law." Kennedy then argued at length that the reason marriage is fundamental, including its connection with individual liberty, applies with equal force to same-sex couples. End quote. So again, the grounding for the 5-member majority? The person, personhood. Person was a term Kennedy repeated in his reasoning. We cannot deny rights to persons. And you, my good listener, you might be wondering, so what's wrong with that? Don't we want to protect persons? And I think that's a fair question indeed. But the deeper question is, and it's one that is now subsequently raging in our culture, what is a person? What defines personhood? Who decides? On what basis? Is it only humans who are persons? Why? What if someone really loves their Irish shepherd? Can someone love an animal so much that the animal becomes a person? Is love the ground for personhood? Is it how much that a subject is loved that grounds personhood? So, say, if someone were not loved by anyone, would they still be a person? Or, alternately put, is personhood a matter of age? 5 years, 10 years, 21 years? Is personhood a matter of time and gestation? How long someone is sentient? How long someone contributes to society? Voting for the proper political candidates?
Ed, that's just ugly.
Yeah, and so is the possibility. And then, also of critical nature, is personhood granted by nature? Or the parents? The state? Is it the Supreme Court that gets to define personhood? Because if so, they didn't. They were making up an entirely new right without explaining or defining the terms through which they were reasoning. So, personhood? Okay, all well and good, but what does that mean? Prior to Obergefell, well, honestly, prior to Roe v. Wade, 1973, because that SCOTUS ruling is also part of this historic philosophical narrative. Prior to all that, personhood was grounded in science. That is to say, personhood was grounded in biology. Biology teaches that we become a new human at the moment of conception. The precise moment that a sperm penetrates an egg, a zinc spark shoots forth. That's so cool. There's a little explosion of joy inside the womb from the onset. A tiny spark of life shoots forth. That's so wild. And the fertilized egg becomes a different genetic structure from either the mother or father. Something thereafter unique but still human is present then in the uterus. Something genetically unique begins to exist in the mother's uterus, and for most all of human history, that something unique was known to be human. Until 1973. But I detour. Let's get back to Obergefell. With Obergefell, SCOTUS removed personhood, and again, this is not merely about who may legally marry. SCOTUS removed personhood from science. Personhood is no longer rooted in science, no longer rooted in biology. What is it rooted in? SCOTUS didn't say. They left personhood within a vacuum. A political vacuum, a philosophical vacuum, a theological vacuum. And students of sociology know, say clear back to Soc 101, that there are no sociological vacuums. Something always rushes in to fill a vacuum. Always. That's spelled EVER. Boys and girls, Zers and G's, guess what is at freight train speed rushing in to fill that definitional, philosophical, theological vacuum? The same bare-toothed monster that always, without fail in human history, rushes in to fill that vacuum. The state. Now, hold on, think with me. We're talking about the state, a power that could not even determine how to have us mask up properly for the good of all concerned. The state that cannot even run a national election with integrity. The state that, holy God in heaven, cannot even manage a budget. The U.S. debt clock is ticking away today at $28 trillion in debt.
28 million?
From year to year. Gersh! I wish Tanya and I could print money and spend 200% over our annual budget with no repercussions from the bank. We're talking about the state that is so inept. Have you gone to the DMV lately? Oh, you snappy snap. You'll be in and out in under 3 hours. Easy peasy. The state that is so inept that it can't fix a single problem confronting us without doubling the size of the government. And you want that to determine something as foundational to the existence of everyone as personhood? What it means to be a person? Oh, dear Jesus. The people who criticize big business but hold dear to heart the federal government. I'm gobshited. Whoo! Calm down, Ed. Take a breath. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Obergefell. Whereas SCOTUS, thank you, Justice Kennedy, not. Whereas SCOTUS left personhood undefined, but, and I cannot emphasize this enough, whereas SCOTUS removed personhood from biology, because it's not about male and female anymore, not about biology anymore, not about nature anymore, and God knows it's not about God anymore. Whereas SCOTUS removed personhood from biology, that definitional ambiguity is not being left alone in its vacuum-packed sandwich bag. Nope. The state is the ruling power, the reigning power. The state now gets to sort out this ambiguous pile of dog doo that SCOTUS, by making up a new right completely out of whole cloth, that's what they've left to America.
Thanks for nuttin', SCOTUS.
And sorry, but I hardly need to point out to my sagacious listeners the problems of leaving something so foundational as the definition of personhood to the state. Right? Do you want to leave the foundational question for all of humanity up to what? Elected officials? Party wonks? People who've never worked a real day-to-day job? Do you want people who, gulp, won a popularity contest to define personhood for the rest of us? Yikes! Do you want folks who, big gulp, were funded by people in ill-gotten high places defining personhood for us? Queso sagrado. Do we want folks who, double big gulp, will hand the power of the people, you and me and our families and friends, over to people in ill-gotten positions of power?
Man, for some reason I'm suddenly thirsty. Could someone go to 7-Eleven and buy me a big gulp?
Zap splat.
Or let's put this even more starkly. Do we want the definition of personhood to be bought by the highest bidder? Do we want what it means to be a person? Do we want what it means to have the right to life? What it means to no longer be a human person? To be decided by unelected judges? Bought and paid for judges? Judges who themselves may have next to nothing by way of philosophical or ethical or religious education and training. Judges, and sorry to the dozens of you judges listening today, judges who, most of whom are good folk, but do we want to leave that definition up to cold-hearted, non-science-minded judges? Again, and oh, so sorry again. But when Obergefell passed in 2015, I told my students in class, now there's no foundational or biological reason to keep people from marrying their pet dogs. And of course you, my astute listener, can imagine the outcry from college types. Rebarchek, that's so unfair. You're being over-the-top rhetorical. Quit being so ugly. Today, because of Obergefell, some states are approving incestuous marriages. Today, polyamory, thruples, quadruples, quintuples, polyamory is slowly being mainstreamed. What about polygamy? I know there are reality TV shows that are already normativizing polygamy. Or, as my wife noted, why not marry yourself? If your will is over your body, if your body belongs as a possession to your will, what's to keep someone from marrying themselves and claiming the benefits and legal benefits and other from marriage? And all of that will finally be the decision of the power-hungry, virtue-vacuumed state. Ooh, I like that. Virtue-vacuumed. Again, the implication, the SCOTUS-born implication is that this is not at all only about marriage.
Marriage, oh marriage.
It has immediate import for unborn babies. Who gets to decide when that zygote is a person? Frighteningly, said the now 60-year-old aging bald man,
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear you.
frighteningly, that has immediate import for the elderly. Who gets to decide how long people should get to live? I mean, the elderly account for 90% of all medical costs. It's expensive for society to have old people around. Who Who gets to decide that mentally handicapped people are no longer of value, are no longer persons? What? What is this all about? Worldview.
Horizon view?
Worldview.
Ecology?
No, worldview.
Climate change?
Doggone it, worldview. What does it mean to be a person? Is biology central to human existence? No? Then what? Is physical reality central to personhood? No? Then what? Once we move the grounding for personhood out of nature, out of biology, and into the hands of the virtue vacuum state, what will follow? A feeding frenzy the likes of which we have never seen in our lives. And we've seen some weird slotch lately, haven't we? Some très mauvais weird slotch. But baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. Next episode, you guys, I'm going to explore still further this will to power worldview definition of personhood as undefined by God vacuum pomos. And then I'm going to start comparing it to a Christian worldview, because this is amazing, powerful, profound stuff. For now, thank you so much for listening. Please go and turn your beautiful God-given brains on, everybody.